You're about to go on a journey through 11 foods that share one surprising secret, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your grocery list the same way. But here's the thing, this isn't just another eat this, not that health video. We're digging into the real history behind these foods, the kind of stories that involve ancient empires, maritime trade routes, and one food that was so valuable in the 14th century that it became the second most valuable export from an entire nation. And there's one item on this list, item number 4, that was once traded barrel by barrel across medieval Europe, fueling economies and feeding millions. We'll get to that one soon enough, but before we do, let's start with something a little more familiar. We'll kick things off with spinach, a leafy green that probably doesn't surprise anyone. Spinach was first cultivated in ancient Persia thousands of years ago. From there, it traveled to China in the 6th century, then to Spain via the Moors in the 12th century, and finally reached the rest of Europe by the 14th century. It was Catherine de' Medici who famously popularized it in France. She loved it so much that dishes prepared on a bed of spinach are still called à la Florentine today. What does modern research say? Spinach contains alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, a plant-based omega-3. Researchers are investigating whether ALA from leafy greens like spinach may play a role in supporting cardiovascular health. But here's the catch. The conversion of ALA to the longer-chain omega-3s, EPA, and DHA in the human body is quite limited. Today, spinach is grown worldwide as a cool-weather crop, and it remains one of the most widely consumed leafy greens on the planet. Now, from a green that conquered empires, let's talk about a tiny seed with an even older pedigree. Flax seeds have been with us for a very long time, nearly 9,000 years of domestication history. Ancient Egyptians used flax not just for food, but famously for wrapping mummies, and the plant was cultivated extensively for its fiber. The earliest evidence of flaxseed products dates back to around the 7th century BCE from Iran. Over in North America, we call it flaxseed for eating. Europeans tend to call it linseed, but it's the same ancient crop. Modern nutrition scientists are exploring flaxseed's omega-3 content, specifically its ALA. While the body's conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA is limited, researchers have observed that ALA-rich foods like flax may still offer their own distinct benefits. Some investigations suggest that increased ALA intake from plant sources is associated with favorable markers of cardiometabolic health. From one seed to another, but this next one has a story that involves Aztec warriors, forced marches, and a very different kind of energy boost. Chia seeds were one of the 4 main crops of the Aztec Empire at the time of Columbus's arrival. The name chia actually comes from the Mayan word meaning strength, and Aztec warriors supposedly relied on just a teaspoon of these seeds to sustain them through 24-hour forced marches. The crop was so valuable that 21 of 38 Aztec states paid chia as annual tribute. Some historians even suggest chia was as important as, or more important than, maize. Today, chia seed oil offers the highest omega-3 fatty acid content available from any plant source. Researchers are studying how this ancient grain, which fell out of global prominence for centuries, might fit into modern dietary patterns. But chia didn't completely disappear, it just became known for something else, those chia pets we all grew up with. Alright, we've covered 3 plants. Now let's head into the water, and things are about to get much more interesting. This is the one. This is the item I hinted at in the beginning, herring. In the 14th century, cod liver and shark liver oils were the second most valuable exports from Iceland, but herring, specifically, was the fish that built an entire economic system. Late medieval Europeans drove the largest catches known from the North Sea and Baltic, feeding millions of northern Europeans with preserved herring. Salted herring packed in wooden barrels could stay fresh for up to a year, making it the cornerstone of bulk trade across medieval Europe. Herring was traded for wine, grain, and cloth in a pan-European network that was, in many ways, the precursor to global trade. The Scandinavian herring fishery of medieval times may have been the single most influential fishery in history. Modern researchers point to herring as one of the top sources of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA. Clinical trials have investigated whether omega-3 supplementation from fish like herring may influence cardiovascular outcomes, with some randomized controlled trials suggesting a reduction in certain events. Researchers continue to study the relationship between fish consumption and various health markers. Herring built economies. Our next fish built an empire's taste, and it's one you might not expect. Anchovies might be small, but their historical footprint is enormous. The Romans were among the first societies to establish large-scale fish salting plants where they fermented small pelagic fish to produce a sauce called garum. And what was the primary ingredient in that sauce? Anchovies. Garum was more than just a condiment. It was a staple of Roman cuisine, prized for its salty, umami flavor, and it had a long shelf life that made it a valuable trade commodity across the entire empire. At one Roman-era salting site in Spain, DNA analysis identified the fish remains as overwhelmingly European sardines and anchovies. Today, researchers are studying anchovies not just for their cultural history, but for their omega-3 content, specifically EPA and DHA. Like other oily fish, they're a rich source of these long-chain fatty acids. But here's what's fascinating. Anchovies are still used today in fermented fish sauces that trace their lineage directly back to Roman garum. From tiny fish to something that sits on a completely different branch of the seafood tree, oysters have been part of human history since the Neolithic period. They're older than us, older than grass, as one writer put it. But the Romans were the ones who really took oyster cultivation seriously. In 97 BCE, a Roman magistrate named Sergius Orata decided he loved oysters so much that he invented oyster farming, collecting seed stock near the Adriatic and transporting them elsewhere for grow-out. From a nutritional standpoint, oysters are a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, along with zinc, selenium, and vitamin D. Researchers are exploring how the omega-3s in shellfish like oysters, which include both EPA and DHA, might fit into broader dietary patterns. Unlike some other seafood, oysters can be farmed sustainably, and cultivation methods have come a long way since Orata's day. We're halfway through, and honestly, nothing we've covered so far compares to what's coming next. The next few foods involve ancient Persia, the Silk Road, and a seed that was once one of the 5 grains of ancient China. Stick with me. Caviar's origins trace back to ancient Persia, where the name itself comes from the Persian word kaviar, meaning egg-bearing. The Persians were the first to cure sturgeon roe with salt, creating the briny delicacy we know today. In those early days, many medicinal properties were attributed to sturgeon roe, and the Persians called it cake of strength. The roe wasn't even taken from live fish, it was collected by hand along riverbeds. Fish roe, including caviar, is rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Researchers are studying the nutritional profile of roe from various fish species, noting its concentration of EPA and DHA. But here's a sobering fact. Wild sturgeon populations have declined dramatically, and most caviar today comes from farmed sturgeon.